One, the only, the Paul friends, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe on Call. And tonight, you got me, you got Barry, and you've got Dave. And we're going to start this evening talking about something that we all enjoy doing, which is playing tournament ships. In this case, we're going to be talking about the Lyran, obviously, in addition with that, we're also talking about the LDR. There's some minor differences there because, come on, when it comes to the LDR is a war cruiser versus the Lyran being a regular CA. Movement cost 1 versus movement cost 2/3. So that makes a bit of a difference, especially when it comes to the amount of power available. And even though they both have approximately the same armament to a degree, the Lyran has 8 phaser ones and LDR has 6, but they both have two ESGs, and of course you have the phaser Gs on the LDR, with the phaser 3s on the Lyran. So the big difference there is I think I forget whether it's 4 or 2 points of power difference, because I'm pretty sure the Lyran has 40 points of power and the LDR only has 38. It might be 36. I'd have to double check.
I thought it was. I thought we were talking about non-tournament. We are talking about tournament.
Yes, we're talking about tournament.
Oh, good.
I've been going through a series of tactics on tournament ships.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going on memory, and it's been years, but I'm going to think the LDR has 36 power. It was always power 4.
Mm-hmm. Oh, agreed.
But let's see, the tournament, the CA, the Lyran has 6 P3s or 4 P3s?
4 P3s.
4 P3s.
I thought
versus the LDR has.
Yeah. I thought it was
the
4.
LDR has.
Yeah.
The LDR has the 2 GATs, which basically amounts to 8 P3s, although it doesn't take damage as well.
Yeah.
It is the that is one thing, you start losing stuff faster on the LDR. Turn modes are pretty bad for both of those ships, I think.
No, I don't think so. If I recall correctly, the LDR has a turn mode of B. Well, yeah, Lyran has a turn mode of C. Yeah, actually, I was wrong. There's only 2 phaser 3s. Those are 360s.
And the regular Lyran has turn mode C, I think.
Yeah, regular Lyran has turn mode C, and the LDR has turn mode of B.
Now, the disruptor arcs, I think the LDR has got 2
much better.
FAL, one's FAL. What's that?
Much better. An FAL, an FAR, and 2 FX.
Right, and the regular heavy is 4 FAs, or does it also have side firing disruptors?
Yeah, the big cat has all of this FAs. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check.
4 is FA.
Yep, there's 4.
Yeah.
There's 4 dark.
And of course, the LDR sometimes is referred to as kinetic fireball of death. Well, on that first round, the first firing pass, it's fast, maneuverable, and hits hard. But it's paper mache. And now, one of the interesting things is that it has, I think the LDR can launch 2 shuttles simultaneously.
Yeah, let me double check. I've got the SSD right in front of me. I'm just taking a look, see if I can see which one that is. I don't see it mentioned at the moment. Yeah, it's 2 bays. Yep.
Yeah.
Which makes it really
How
nice
about
for
the,
suicide
the
shuttles.
Big Cat? How about the Big Cat? How many bays, shuttle bays is that?
I'm pretty sure it has only one, but let me just double check.
Only.
No, the Lyran also has 2 shuttle bays.
There's 2 shuttle bays.
Yep. I did not realize that.
Now, the interesting part about that is that, of course, the ESGs kind of interact badly with their own shuttle.
Yeah, that's usually a bad thing, though. And I'm sure the shuttle pilots do not appreciate it.
No, they wouldn't.
I'm sure.
But
I'm not sure if you remember the story about the fighters not wanting to launch because of an incident where there was a Lyran commander who brought, the things were coming in and they launched their fighters and they basically killed the whole fighter squadron by turning on the ESC. It's like, no. Oh, just to let you know, LDR has 34 points of power.
30, what's that? 34?
34. I've triple counted these. Like it's got 24 warp, it's got 6 APRs, and it's got 4 impulse. That's 34.
Ouch. 34 power.
Yeah,
I
so
knew it was low.
Yeah, it's really low. It's not as low as we thought. It was worse.
Yeah, when you were saying 38, it was like, 38 would be nothing to touch it.
Agreed. But the LDR has 40, which is good when it comes to those ESGs.
It needs it.
Oh yeah. Everything it has on its ship is a big power suck. Of course.
Sadly, I'm hearing about every other word. I don't know why. I think the cell zone coverage in this area sucks.
That's possible. Actually, you're sounding pretty good, though. I can hear a lot of your background noise.
Oh. Let me take you off the Bluetooth headset, see if that improves things.
Okay.
Is that any better?
Much better. Much better.
All right.
Do I sound any better?
All right. I got one of these Bluetooth headsets, which came highly recommended, but usually it works pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually the best noise cancellation are the Parrots. Of course, those are designed for trucking, for driving down the road.
Right. But those ESGs take a lot of juice.
Mm-hmm.
And the LDRs, they're a one shot. The LDR basically has to come to a complete stop to recharge the ESGs.
Yeah,
which that ship is dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you have to slowly charge them because that's the great thing about some of the weapon systems that the Lyrans have.
Right, everything's capped.
Yeah, well, you have 2 capacitors. You got the ESG, which is a capacitor. You have the phaser, which are capacitors, and the disruptors. They're very flexible when it comes to energy usage. You can charge them, you can not charge them. You could put you can put 1 point of energy into it, and then do basic contingency charging.
Right.
It's I've never seen anyone actually. Well, I've rarely seen anyone do that. Except
Well,
the only time I've ever seen it is when you have the one point extra power that you're not sure what to do with. You don't have enough. You can't put that into batteries. You don't want to really put it into shielding because 1 point not gonna make that big of a difference, especially if you get it on the wrong shield. You know, and you put it towards that one disruptor that might survive or
right.
might not survive the initial volley or the next volley that's going to be coming to
Yeah.
hit you. You know,
Yeah.
of course, you just got to make sure your batteries survive at that point.
Yeah. Well, if you're anticipating losing it, then maybe a shield point. You're probably going to know what shield is coming in at that point.
Depends on the player.
Because power and shield might save it.
Mm-hmm. Overall, I'm not really good at guessing what shield is going to get hit by by my opponent.
Yeah. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you have better to charge 1 with 2 than 2 with 1.
I agree there.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. But the situation where you have one last disruptor that you might lose in that volley, or you're concerned
Right.
about it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of those kind of out there things. Overall, you rarely would ever use it, but it's like using your tractors. You have to remember you have them. You have to remember you actually have the option.
Right.
That's the thing. That's one of the things that I bring up in these different tournament tactics discussions, and that is about reminding people of all of the tactics, all of the different things that you can do with this ship, things that are viable, some things that are crazy, but in there's certain situations it might just work. Because I'm sure everyone has done, who's ever played a plasma ship has done this sooner or later, which is going in hot and heavy with tractor beams. You got nothing else charged except for your tractor beams and your plasmas, and you're just trying to get there really fast and tractor the guy before he gets away. And
yeah,
and then let loose because you're close.
The anchor, the Gord anchor.
Yep, old Gord anchor.
Yeah,
and every once in a while you're gonna do it. You're gonna go for that. It's not one of those tactics that you're gonna do every single time you play a plasma ship. But it's something to remember that it's a possibility. It is out there. You do it every once in a while to the very least keep your opponent honest. And if they know you, it's even better because you can surprise them.
Yeah. Well, the LDR has the ability to threaten the Gorn anchor with I guess there's not enough time to really do it, but first of all, the Gordon's going to take 2 ESGs on the way in, the gaps on the way in, everything else. The question is, can you break that anchor? If you can hold the range to 2, and let's say you don't have the power to you don't allocate the power to break the anchor. Can you do enough to stop, to take out that second tractor?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't, well, it's game over.
Right. Understood. But okay, again, getting back to Lyran tactics. Usually, what's the first thing you do on a Lyran? You make sure that the ESGs are topped off.
Right.
That's the first thing you usually do for the first turns. You top them off.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Lyran's going to have a little bit of trouble, especially the LDR, with plasma ships, in the sense that plasma ships, the Lyran really works best at close range.
Oh, agreed. Agreed. But come on, Barry. When it comes to plasma, fighting plasma within any ship doesn't matter. You're going to be doing the whole. You're going to do either one or two tactics, basically, which is run like heck, and run out the plasma, and try to get the timing right so that you can have your plasma opponent with the least amount of plasma before you come in and come out after him, or you wild weasel. You wait for enough of the plasma to build up, and then you wild weasel.
Right.
Or you come. There's depending upon the situation. Obviously, you can come running in towards the plasma. Fire if it's close enough. Now this is a rare situation because the plasma opponent is not going to want to get close to it. After it launches its plasma, he's going to be running away, or at the very least be far behind that plasma. He's not going to be normally he's not going to be close in behind it. So the whole idea of approaching your enemy ship, fire ED wild weasel, and then have your plasma hit the wild weasels. That's a rare situation where you can do that.
Right. Well, yeah. If you ED against a plasma ship, then he just basically, as long as he didn't launch all the plasma, he can come back around and keep you at low speed and have time to recharge the plasma before you can get up to speed, and you're down a shuttle.
Mm-hmm.
That's and very often if the plasma player plays it right, if he's got an opponent who's using weasels, he might be able to get two of them to come out.
Yeah. Well, if you're going, the Lyran, like any other ship, when it comes to plasma, is you've got to decide what is going to be your strategy. In my mind.
Yeah.
Because for me, there's two tactics I have in mind. One, I'm just going to run out the plasma. I don't even charge wild weasels. I'm going to run, and that's going to be it.
Well, that's a safer tactic, yeah.
Yeah, but also it requires a little more timing. My mind.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let me ask the question: what would Paul Scott do?
Unfortunately, I do not know the mind of Paul Scott, because if I knew the mind of Paul Scott, I'd probably be a heck of a lot better player.
Did you ever read any of his term papers?
Probably, but it's been quite a few years by now.
Well, basically, he plays a very conservative game and just basically tries not to make mistakes. And figures that eventually his opponent's going to make mistakes, and then he takes advantage of each one. He doesn't take much advantage of it, but every little bit helps.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of making less mistakes than your opponent.
Understood.
Yeah. and basically delay.
Yeah, but
He's not
here.
the most aggressive person.
Mhm.
He's not the most aggressive player in the world,
No.
but he does keep the pressure up,
Mhm.
and he allows you to make the mistake. Then capitalizes on it.
Mhm. Yeah, because the hard part about always running is that if you're going to be always running, that means one of two things you're going to have to give up. You have to give up either charging your weapons so you can keep up the speed, and I
Mm-hmm.
never fire at your opponent and just waiting for him to final and you're going to get hit no matter how much you run. You're going to get hit. You're fighting in a fishbowl. In the
Right.
fishbowl, you only got so much room, especially if your opponent takes the center of the board and you're running around the edge. Because I know this, I've done this. Where you're running around the edge of the board, your speed has to be kept up so much faster than your opponent. Your opponent can be kept at a nice speed to maybe 15, 20. You got to keep up a speed of like 30 to keep running around the edge of the bowl. And even with that,
Well, yeah.
even with that, the plasma can get ahead of you because the plasma can be a heck of a lot faster than you can. So sooner or later, you're going to get hit, if not for a lot, for a little at least. And since plasma can always be recharged, unless you're actually firing at your opponent's ship, he's just going to be he can wear you down. Obviously, the tough part for the plasma player is making sure that you have enough the timing of when you launch the plasmas.
Right. Well, the other thing is that the LDR in particular can run away and still fire an overload disruptor.
Right.
Agreed. That's something most ships can't do.
Oh, agreed. And Lord knows, with some of the crazy Andromedan suggestions, for where to put the TRs, and it's like, oh, they should have one in the left-hand side, one on the right-hand side, and one in the front. And then and you got people that scream like, no, we don't want to have it so you can run away and still be firing at us.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing,
yeah.
But again, it costs you 2 points of power, or at least 4. If you want to overload, that's going to cost you 8. That's a lot of power for that LDR. That's a lot of power.
Right. I'm just saying that use one side disruptor, and it's just only one overload, and not much, but a little plink here, a little plink there, and eventually it adds up.
Mm-hmm. Assuming you hit.
Assuming you hit. Yep.
And that's why, well, obviously the big boy, the big Glaren, he has some advantages because of, obviously, he's got more internals. He's got more power.
Yes.
And in addition to that, he also has the one-time UIM.
Right.
Which is
nice.
Oh, it's very nice, especially on those times when you want not quite, well, you can't have a guaranteed kill, can't have a guaranteed hit, but it can be a much better chance to hit.
Yeah, especially if you use it at range 8.
Yep. Or I'm just looking at also all the way up to range 3. Range 3 without UIM is 1 to 4.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have a UIM, it's 1 to 5.
Right. And at range 3, the DSGs are in range.
Yes, they are.
Mm.
And of course, it's the ESGs are kind of like the Saltorian shield crackers. Now, I hadn't even talked about Saltorian tactics yet. We'll get to them.
Mm-hmm.
Not tonight, but we'll get to them at some point in the future. But
what was last week's topic?
Last week's topic was the Orion. And also,
you didn't start with the easy one, did you?
No, that one was a tougher one because of the Orion the weapons. One of the things I covered a lot of times was the packages. What kind of packages do you choose? Because that's a big thing with the Orion.
Yeah.
That will define how you fly the ship. And I also I brought out some of the crazier things that you can do in the Orion. Some things that I've never ever seen anyone do. Like the whole idea of having a pure drone Orion. All 5 option mounts.
Interesting.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I don't think anyone's ever done it. Now we've got the phaser boat. That's been done multiple times.
The drone package actually has some interesting promise.
Yeah, especially because it gets oak disc.
You can anchor.
Yep.
Like nobody's business.
Agreed. As I said,
but it only has one shuttle bay though. That's the problem.
Yeah. True. But if you got them locked in a tractor beam, it will matter because obviously they can change their shield facing, and that's why you want the double base, so that when you launch the suicide shuttles like what the Lyrian can do, it can hit the same shield. So instead of having only 18 points of damage against one shield, you can do 36.
Right. Or you could do 4 drones in a gap.
Well, that's when it comes to the Orion, the phaser boat. That's what it is. 4 drones in a gap, not 4 phaser ones in a gap. Yeah. Which is again an interesting one. I've not seen anyone try it. Someone have to be a real dedicated Orion to try some of the crazier options, in my mind.
Yeah.
Like fusion, and 3 plasmavs.
Yeah.
Because you can put fusions in the wings.
Right.
And in that case, they're all hit on torps.
Yes. Interesting.
Oh yeah. Now I can't imagine ever trying to do a suicide overloads with fusions on an Orion, but hey, you
Does it get any pseudos with the F?
I don't think so. I think it's like, yeah, I'm positive. Actually, that's a good question. There. Just need to bring it up real quick. I see. Black Shark. Orion. Okay, just mentioning those with the wing mounts. Okay, I do not. Nope. I do not see any explicit thing that says that it gets pseudos. Like like the King Eagle.
I know there is one. The King Eagle gets
right
pseudos with its Fs.
Right. It says the ship does have all three pseudos plasma torpedoes versus, the normal Turner rules, which says, that it is. Okay. Yeah, plasma torpedoes with Raman's Gorn's I see do not receive pseudo plasma torpedoes for type F torpedo. TKE does have it. Orion and Winds who install type F in option mounts do receive pseudo plasma for the let's try this again. Actually, I was wrong. Orion's and Winds who install type F torpedoes in option mounts do receive pseudo plasma torpedoes for them up to a maximum of 2 pseudo plasma torpedoes per ship.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Which mounts the pseudo plasma torpedoes are designated publicly as part of the original option mount selection and cannot be changed.
Oh, so you publicly announced it at the beginning which ones have the pseudos?
Yep. If you 3 plasma torpedo plasma F torpedo tubes, the person gets to know which 2 actually have pseudos.
Right, and I guess for all with the FPs mounts.
What's that again?
For all, I guess the Orion takes 3 Fs. They're all FP mounts.
Yeah, let me just double check. I think that's correct. Okay, as 3 is okay. 5 3 forward center line. Okay, yeah, it means FA or FP.
Yeah.
So it would be FP, which is pretty good. Basically.
And I think I've seen that someone fly that configuration, 3 Fs and 2 fusions.
Daniel, that one. See, the thing is, that one I can easily see because that's a coming in close, and since the plasmas themselves are 0 energy holds,
right?
You can fly around without costing you any additional energy. Now, charging, if you launch them all at the same time, it's going to be 339. To
right.
Reload them.
Yeah, which isn't bad at all.
Right.
What it means is on your off turns, you're not doubling, which isn't a bad idea. The Orion can get the extra power when it needs it. Yeah,
and you definitely would want that. And that configuration, you want to be up and close anyway, because of quickly.
Yeah.
20 out 5 and then 6.
What's faster repair, fusion or an F?
That's a good question. I don't have the cost repair in front of me. I don't know where I could find that.
Asking all the good questions, aren't I?
Yeah. You are. Of course, they're not related to the Lyran.
The repair cost of an ESG is don't even bother.
Oh, that's 25 points.
Yeah.
Same cost. Right, same cost as a Hellbore. Which of course brings us to that situation that sometimes occurs with the Lyran, which is you're fighting a Hydran. Because in that situation, it's a twofold system. In my mind, you can either, and some of this really depends on how the Hydran's flying it, and that is obviously we have the whole Hellbore ESG interaction, which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Good and that it protects your shield.
Yeah.
Bad.
It's an extra shield.
The bad.
It's an automatic hit.
That's right.
And not only that, but if the ESG is not at range 0, it actually reduces the range for the hellbore.
Yep. Now, here's the thing.
If I'm at range 4 from that Lyran and I fire hellbores, and the ESGs are at range 3, as far as I'm concerned, I'm range 1 from the Lyran, even though I'm range 4.
Mm-hmm. Oh, understood. But again, the whole idea in that scenario is that you're trying to reduce the hellbore anyway, so that even hits you. Okay, who cares? A lot of the damage is going to be taken up by your ESG. Depends upon obviously how many ESGs you got up at that moment in time. But it will reduce it greatly. Now, obviously, there's the other way of using ESGs, and that I said all depends on how the hydrant's flying, and how obviously part of that is going to be how you're going to fly it too. Because another way you can use the ESGs is to basically roll over the fighters.
Yeah.
Because you can get them up at range 3. Fighters normally don't want to fire outside of range 3 if they can avoid it, because they have to use double charges.
I would put the ESGs at range 2, because the ESGs hit the fighters before the fighters have a chance to fire. And range 3, the fighters are very much degraded. They're using 2 fusion charges at range 3, and the gaps are very much reduced.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah. So range 2 is the optimal range, 2 or less. And if you have the ESGs hit the fighters before they have a chance to return fire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's where your hellbores are good for taking down the ESGs to protect your fighters.
Right. But of course, in that situation, if you got your hellbores available, in that case, the Lyran is going to probably use the ESGs for protecting the ship. Then you're not going to try to run down the fighters, because the hydrant's going to use the hellbores to knock down the ESGs. But there's also, of course, the situation where if the hydrant player is also keeping his fighters close to his ship, he can actually put himself between the Lyran ship and the fighters. So that the ESG hits the ship. Of course, the Lyran won't be too broken up about that.
Well, another possibility is if the hydrant is leading the fighters in to protect them. If you set up a range 2 ESG and you set it up so that you pass the hydrant ship, and then the ESG goes live, you can take out the fighters. Especially if you track through the Lyran and have it push you away from the fighters. And push the ESGs right into it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that requires all sorts of timing.
Oh, agreed. That is the one thing that, given the situation, if you can do it, I say do it, because Lord knows those fighters can cause you a lot of headache and a lot of damage.
On the other hand, getting to range 2 of a hydrant is very often death, because it does have the 2 gaps, it does have the 4 fusions.
Exactly. And most probably, unless the hydrant can get up and close and personal, he's not going to use those fusion beams. he'll use his phasers to not to dent your shield, and hellbore to basically bore into that shield. But I think I lost Barry. Well, hellbore bore into that shield, and that so the Hydra's not going to be wanting to use those fusions, because the fusions they have to cool down for a turn, and two, they have to take 2 points per fusion to actually charge. So while you can run around the board with those fusions with only 1 point of power and to hold it. So you want to try to save that energy as much as possible, because Lord knows for the Hydra, those hellbores can be the energy suck. Not as bad as the ESGs, because Lyran has the problem with having ESGs and disruptors. Of course, the ESGs, just like the fusion beams, they do have a 32 impulse cooldown period before they can be brought up again. So that is using the ESGs for the Lyran is always an interesting situation. And that's because of the amount of power it requires to use them. As I pointed out earlier in the podcast, that what's the first turn you're going to be doing? What you're going to be doing on the first turn for the Lyran is you will be charging the ESG, because if I recall correctly, the ESGs start with 3 points of energy in them. Sorry, I'm wrong. They start with 5 points of energy in them. I was incorrect. I'm sorry. Sorry, I thought they started with 3. I was wrong. I apologize for that. But now, obviously, you have to when you release the energy, the question is, when do you use the ESGs, when you don't? Because what is most of your opponents going to be doing in the Lyran? The opponent is going to try to keep at greater than range 3, possibly range 5 if they can help it, because of obviously if you can get to range 4, you might be able to get out of the situation, but you have to be really, really careful. You're riding the razor's edge when you're going for range 4. And you got to know that you have the ability to duck out of range 4 to range 5, or at least be able to maintain the range 4 at that point and run away. Because if the Lyran is able you're as a Lyran player, if you're able to actually hit that person at range 3, boom. If you have both ESGs up, that's 30 points of damage on that shield. That shield's gone. Let's be honest here. It is gone. In which case, then you can just whatever. If you fired most of your phasers, that's fine. Possibly get 2 phaser 3s left over. Fire them. Internals are internals. You take them if you can. There's a situation that you don't want to do that. If they have, if at that point they decide to come in closer to you, then you're gonna have a problem. Though obviously, if they get hit, they might decide that the best chance to actually win, depending upon what your weapon situation is with your Lyran, they might come in towards you, because if you are used up your weapons, they don't have anything to lose for the most part. But as pointed out earlier, keep that in mind, because Lord knows I've told the story many times of me being an Andromedan, and I got stupid, and I decided to, I'm going to go for the kill. I'm going to go for the kill because he's fired early. He's not. I'm still good because the wind guy flying the wind, a great black shark. He fired at range 5, everything, and it's like, why are you doing this? And then he launches these shells. Oh, the shells. They're nothing. They're nothing. Rover random, boom. I died basically. He got through my ESGs, knocked down some Eternals, and at that point, I was in deep trouble. At that point, and that's the one thing that your opponents might also do in the Lyran. And that is, you fired your weapons. They say, oh, they're going to head back towards you because they'll get a good shield at that point because they already have a down shield because you hit them with their ESG, and they might have not fired all their weapons. They might have, in which case, they might run away anyway. But if they got enough weapons to maybe go in for a kill or go really damage you and fly past you, the one thing that you have to remember that when they do that, you have your suicide shuttles ready to launch out the front and have it so that your opponent, and even if you don't launch real suicide shuttles, pseudo suicide shuttles, because you can do those. There's 0 energy to prepare. You just have to, and if I recall correctly, you have to prepare them at the beginning of the turn, but they cost you no energy. Now, they kind of don't do any damage, but, or even better yet, just launching 2 normal admin shuttles, controlled by pilots and all that kind of thing, making your opponent think they're suicides, but they're not. And you can, if your opponent's thinking, he will realize, oh crap, those are suicides or might be suicides, and then he'll adjust. He'll go, instead of try to overrun you and go for max damage, he might go around you and limit the damage to either range 1 or range 2, depending upon, obviously, when the shuttles moves versus when your opponent moves. Because remember, one thing about shuttles move last when it comes to ships versus, when it comes to order of things, the order of precedence. Shuttles go pretty much last. Obviously, the ones that really go last are the seeking weapons. But I digress. So when the ESGs, that's one of the most hard thing to do, and especially as we pointed out earlier, when it comes to the LDR is the most difficult thing when it comes to ESGs. Most of the time, you use the ESGs once at LDR, and that's it. And I'm not saying because they get blown off the ship, because every once in a while they do, yes. But the problem is recharge, because as I mentioned, after I actually looked it up, the LDR only has 34 points of power. That's not much. When you have a ship who loves to just suck the energy right out of it, because the ESGs have a really high when it comes to amount of power required to charge them. Max capacitor to 5 points apiece. Now, as I mentioned before, you don't have to put 5 points of energy into the ESG immediately. You can put one each turn, or maybe put 1 here, 2 here. The whole idea is just to have something in there, because at the very least, when it comes to the ESGs, if you're flying against a drone opponent, having 2 points of power in the ESGs, assuming they're alive, is enough to reduce the drones possibly to the point where you use your phasers, or depends upon how you want to do your ESGs. You might want to do ESGs at that point, range 1, so that it hits the drones, and then you still have the opportunity to hit the remaining drones that still survive with phasers. Now, obviously, the biggest issue with ESGs when it comes to drones is you don't want to have a large group of them that all hit at the same time. And of course, your opponent is going to know that. So what he's going to do, he's going to make sure his drones are stacked so that all damage has to be even over all the drones. So if you have, let's say, 10 points of energy in the ESGs that are up, you probably say one ESG that's up because you didn't have enough energy for a fully charged ESG. And you have 5 drones. All 5 drones take, and 5 drones hit that ESG. They all take 2 points of damage. So you still got 5 drones still staring you in the face, you know, and that's why the opponents will do that against you. So in the Lyran, that's one of those things you have to keep in mind, and that is the way that ESG works, which is um, the order of precedence of damage. Obviously, um, the things that all hit the barrier at the same time take it evenly. Though I'd have to look up when it comes to order of precedence, when it comes to ESGs, if there's a difference when it comes to size class. If like the drones get hit first, then the fighters / shuttles, then the ships, or are all objects that enter that field at the same time all take damage evenly? I think they all take damage evenly. The only time there is a difference, if I recall correctly, is when you have a ship that doesn't just enter the field, or unit that don't just enter the field, but goes through the field. At that point, that one's considered first. So I'd have to look up exactly how that particular situation goes, but definitely look it up. Now, obviously, given that both the LDR and the Lyran, the big cat, both are basically direct fire weapons. They're all they have is direct fires. Obviously, the ESG is not quite direct fire, but you get the idea. You've got phasers, you got disruptors, and you got the ESGs, which you can either run into your opponent or use as protection, either against hellbores or drones, or even suicide shuttles. Obviously, plasmas, not so much. As we pointed out, plasmas are kind of different character. Let's go over that one more time, which is a Lyran versus a plasma. Obviously, you're going to be using the ESG against your opponent's ship. So that means timing. You have to deal with timing greatly. Obviously, if you wanted to, there's one of those great things about the Lyran. The Lyran could actually go in and actually, I was thinking about that. That might be such a good idea. I was thinking about that Lyran could go in. Wild Weasel, the the plasma, and then after you get out of the reactivate the fire control, then you can bring up your ESGs and you actually have some additional protection instead of just sitting there. So that's something to keep in mind. Of course, most probably, the only thing that definitely helps, because that means your opponent is not going to be overrunning you when it comes to that. Now, obviously, there's always difficulty with that because of if you have your opponent coming in with his plasma, bring up your ESG afterwards, you might have a problem. Which might be what they plan on doing. Now, So with plasma, the ESGs are less useful. They're purely as a blunt instrument to destroy shuttles, and if you might be doing that, you might not, or um, ramming your opponent's ship. Those are the two things. So always keep that in mind. Now, obviously, the one thing, as I've pointed out before, a great thing about disruptors is that they're so flexible. Keep that in mind. That flexibility, so that allows you to, especially when it comes to plasma, it gives you really great flexibility because you're probably going to be doing a lot of running when it comes to plasma ships. That is running away from plasma, and you're setting your timing, and because of ESGs don't cost you any energy whatsoever to hold, you're good. If I recall correctly, they will dissipate after 25 turns. I think that's correct. I think there's some rules about things like phasers and held plasma Fs. The whole idea is that they're not held forever in that. But anyhow, so that gives you plenty of flexibility when it comes to running and know when you can actually be able to attack. Again, it comes down to timing. Now, facing drones, of course, what are you going to do? You have two options again, and you always have this option, which is using it as a blunt instrument. An instrument where you're just ramming the other guy's ship. And of course, when it comes to drones, he might be using his drones just to soak up the damage. Now, there's always the opposite approach, which is using it as purely a protective measure against the drones. Which always, again, it's difficult, as I pointed out before. You're probably going to want to have it at range like 1 or 2, possibly. Obviously, there's always a difficult situation where you both move the same impulse when you go from 2 to 0. That's what the drone chucker is going to want, because there's a possibility that when it goes from 2 to 0, that the collection of drones will fly right through the ESGs. If they fly right through the ESGs, they might all survive. If they all survive, they're going to hit your ship, and you're going to die. There's a good possibility that you will die. Hey, Barry, you're back.
Hey there. Yeah, well, I saw an opportunity I could not turn down. Guy sat down nearby wearing a SpaceX hat.
Ah, okay.
He was an employee. How could I not talk to him?
Oh, understood. Being
sorry.
Being the tech guy you are,
I've been following that company since 2008?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is fine.
That's like putting a raw steak in front of a dog and expecting it to ignore it.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah. So I've got, oh gosh, over an hour till flight leaves.
Understood.
So,
yeah. Moving back to Lyrans. So I covered the drone chuckers and the plasma chuckers, and of course we've already covered the hydrants and that particular situation.
Oh, I just dropped my boarding pass somewhere. Correct.
Shall I let you go and go look for that boarding pass?
What's that?
Shall I let you go and try to find that boarding pass?
Wait. No, I got it.
Okay.
Got it. I just had it in a different pocket.
Mm-hmm. Good to hear. Yes, obviously the LDR versus the Fed. Good luck.
The what?
Fed tournament cruiser versus
Fed
the
what?
LDR.
Okay.
I don't think the LDR has much of a chance. Because if those photons penetrate your shield, you're in trouble because it doesn't have that many boxes left.
Correct.
It's not like a Zinnia. The Zinnia, you hit it, it's got I think around 120 internals. It can survive a direct hit and keep coming.
Well, let's see. At range 2, photons have a hit number of 1 through 5, which is you're running into the possibility of all 4 hitting.
Yeah, but let's say the average is 3. So that's 48 points of damage.
Okay. Plus the phasers.
Right.
And typically the LDR is maneuverable enough it might only be an arc of 6 P1s.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay. Plus the 2 P3s and at range. But keep in mind that the LDR still has probably 2 shuttles. And range 2, it's what can the LDR does? It's going to fire simultaneously at range 2.
Yep. Because if it waits till later, it's not going to have much of a ship left.
Correct. So 4 disruptors, 2 gats, 6. What are the firing arcs on the? Is it 2 FA, 2 FAL, and 2 FAR? I'm going by memory.
Then when it comes to the phaser ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay. Basically, 6 P1s. You probably want to set the ESGs to range 2. So they'll do 17 each. So 34. The LDR is going to do a lot more damage. But it can take a lot less.
Right. Well, you're assuming one great thing. That is, if you have an ESG...
What?
That if you have an ESG up at range 2, that the Fed's going to come into range 2. As a Fed,
if the Fed doesn't come into range.
As a Fed, if you got an ESG up at range 2, I'm not going to go running through it.
Right.
You know, I'm either going to fire at a farther range to eliminate the possibility of being hit by the ESG. That's one. Or wait, because the ESGs have to come down.
Well, here's the thing now. If you bring up the ESGs and the Fed turns away, you can cancel that. Or just cancel one of them.
Agreed, but you're going to cancel it most probably before it comes up, so you have the opportunity to bring it back up quicker. and not waste the energy.
Well, the problem is that if you time it right, by the time the Fed turns away, if it turns away in time that it's not going to take the ESGs, it means that the Lyran, maybe it's got a range 5 shot on a off shield, and then it'll try to duck behind the Fed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
So the fact that he turned away means that the Lyran gets a unreturned shot and then tries his best to run behind the Fed and run away.
Which means
at that point it's game over.
Well, that not quite, because at that point, with the Fed in that case, if they thinks it through, is not going to just sit there and not fire and just run away. It might do the first option, which is fire at a farther range and then run away.
Well, if the Fed fires at range, there's a good chance that a lot of the photons are going to miss.
Yeah, more photons will miss. Agreed.
Yeah. And if enough of them miss, then the Lyran can come in and finish the job.
Yep. Well, the Fed just has to. Okay, the Fed just gets into range 4. Range 4 is 1 to 4 to hit.
Yeah.
That's 2/3.
Right. Count on 2 of the photons hitting.
Yeah. So 2 of them will definitely, will most probably hit. Possibly 3 if you're lucky.
Yeah. Right. But
so,
you count on 2.
If you count on 2, that's going to be what? 32 points of damage at range 4. That's from the photons.
But here's the thing: if you get to range 4, and the Lyran is in your FAR, so you can fire the photon torpedoes, you probably won't get a chance to turn away in time to avoid range 3.
Yeah, but you're assuming that the ESG is going to be up on range 2.
Well, or even you're going to have a hard time avoiding even range 2. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. There's the obvious.
Now you've got a good chance of knocking one of the ESGs off before it hits.
Right. Because the average damage when it comes to those 6 phaser 1s is 4 points per. That's
correct.
That's 24 points of damage plus the 30. 24 plus 32. That's going to be your 56 points of damage against the LDR.
Yeah, that's enough to knock out an ESG.
Enough to knock down ESG, knock down a bit of power, But of course, with the LDR, the power is at a premium. It doesn't want. He doesn't want.
Yeah. I understand that, but on the other hand, the LDR is probably going to get a chance to fire it simultaneously at range 4 with 4 disruptors and 6 P1s, and then yes, if the Fed does fire, if it doesn't fire, then range 2 is a guarantee. And now the LDR still has the gaps and the ESGs. And there's a good chance they'll come on the same shield.
My dear friend, it sounds like you're metagaming. I.e., I'm calling for fire of range 4. And, the Lyran's going to then fire.
Well, let's say you fire at range 4 is the wiring. You fire the disruptors and the phasers.
Right. In which case,
And if the Fed fires 2, they can damage the LDR, but then the Fed better get out of Dodge City because those ESGs and GATs are coming for it.
but also remember at that point,
if the Fed doesn't fire, then it gets a better shot, but there's a good chance that both ESGs will be alive to hit.
Agreed.
So the wiring will get to double tap the Fed,
but at the
whereas
same
the Fed and there's a possibility that the wiring could knock one of the photons off before it gets to fire, which is huge.
Oh yeah, if the LDR fires at range 4, and if the Fed waits to come in closer to get a better shot, yeah, there's that possibility.
There'll be less of the Fed. There'll be less of the Fed to get that better shot.
Right, but if the Fed fires at range 4 with the LDR, then he's going to hit the one shield. What's going to be the next thing that's going to happen? The Fed's going to turn away. Fed turns away. The ESGs that are a possibility of being up are going to hit a different shield.
Yes, but okay, range 2, different shield for both the LDR and the Fed, and it's 1 ESG and 2 GATs at range 2. That's enough to take down the second shield and do, 10, 15 internals? Because remember, that will most likely be a rear shield.
Agreed. I agree there.
And then that I think covers the balance.
Yeah, and then obviously the important thing is that the LDR has to get to range 2. Because we only get to range 3, it's not going to do much.
But here's the other thing: is now the Fed's turned away, the LDR is on his tail, and the LDR is armed with one-turn arming weapons, other than the ESGs, which there's only one left, and he's not going to be even bothering with them. So he's got basically the disruptors and phasers, and the GATs are really efficient. That's and he's facing a weakened, or he's facing the Fed from the wrong direction from the Fed. I think the LDR has a good chance.
That was something we'd have to play out because of I've flown the LDR against the Fed. I keep losing.
Okay. Now, having said that, if a Fed can get to range 2 of an LDR with no internals and fire an alpha, it is most likely game over for the LDR.
Oh, I agree there.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh, agreed. That the only way that could possibly occur is if they caught the LDR unawares that it was coming in, and I have a hard time believing that. When unawares, i.e., doesn't have the ESGs up.
Right.
Now, in theory, when it comes to range 3 hitting it, there is that possibility of doing that, which is having it so that you take a range 3 ESG on one shield, but direct fire is on a different shield. I forget if that's actually a possibility or not.
Well, the problem with raising the ESGs at range 3 versus range 2 is that it gives the Fed more wiggle room to take the ESGs on one shield and everything else on another.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
It's range 2. It's a little harder to pull that off.
Agreed. I think it's impossible with range 2.
Yeah. Yeah. The extra 2 points of damage at range 2 is not too meaningful. Doesn't make much difference.
Mm-hmm. Now,
I mean, it is gravy, but it's only 2 points.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I personally think that the big cat, has a better chance against the Fed. Just because of the number of internals it got.
Yes, the big cat does have a good chance. Better chance. Well, what did I start this conversation with? In the non-tournament game, the Tiger versus a Fed heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Tiger should win every time. Of course, in that, I think the Tiger in the standard game has 38 power.
Yep. And in tournaments get
34 for.
And in the tournament,
34 for standard Fed.
Right.
How much power does a Fed heavy have? 38 in tournament?
38 tournament, and Liren has 40 in tournament.
It's 40 tournament, yeah. Yeah, the big cat's tough customer.
Agreed.
But,
and those ESGs are definitely nothing to sneeze at. They can be quite dangerous. Obviously, the difficult part is deploying them and knowing when the whole canceling thing. That tactic of announcing that you're going to bring up the ESGs, and then your opponent decides to run away because he doesn't want to face these ESGs, and you cancel.
Yeah. I actually have to get off the phone because my data plan doesn't work when I'm on the phone. And the gate I'm at is now saying that at about the time that my flight leaves, this one's leaving for El Paso. So I think they changed my flight's gate. I need to find out what gate it's been moved to.
Okay. Well, you have a good night.
You too.
Yeah. Bye-bye. So the Liren is obviously the biggest issue with the big cat versus the Liren versus the LDR is, well, LDR has less power but is more maneuverable. So it requires less power to actually move it, but that, to me, that's not always a good thing when you have power-hungry weapon systems like the ESGs. But of course, then you have the big cat. That's ESGs. They're power-hungry, but you have a larger ship. You got more internals. So if there is that mistake that you do, or if your opponent gets lucky with those die rolls, you still have more of a ship versus the LDR. And as I said, I've tried to fight with the LDR and I've not done well. Have I flown with the Liren? I think I might have flown once, but I can't remember off the top of my head, how many times I've actually played the Liren. I think most of the time I avoid it. I usually stick to ships like the Satorian, the King Eagle, the Wind Block Shark. I like flying that. Every once in a while, I fly the Wind Tournament Auxiliary Battle Cruiser. although I've flown also the Zinni because obviously the one I kind of like the Zinni when it comes to the amount it can take quite a bit of damage because of the number of internals on it, and it can actually face a fed full overload photon spread and survive and still win. To me, that's darn impressive. So, I think we'll wrap it up for this evening. Obviously, we had a nice discussion about the Lyran, the LDR, and got sidetracked by discussing plasma ships and flying those, and of course the Orions, which is always an interesting topic. And somebody tells me we will probably come back to the Orions at some other point because of it's always that's as I said with the Orion discussion last week. It's always better to have someone to talk to about that, have someone bounce off when it comes to packages because of there's only so many packages I can think of that I think are viable and I'd want to play versus some other one because some of these packages are just can be nuts, when it comes to the Orion. And of course, that's one of the reasons why people like playing the Orions is because they get the twiddle of the dials when it comes to okay, I'm going to customize this one of the ships that you can customize the most of all of the tournament ships. So with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.
Recording paused.